On the distant world of Zephyra, the skies shimmered in shades of violet and gold. Towering spires of crystal reflected the sunlight, casting rainbows across the floating gardens that hung like islands in the air. It was a world of beauty beyond imagination, a place where technology and nature blended seamlessly. Among the inhabitants, the royal family ruled with wisdom and grace, and today, the palace buzzed with anticipation. Princess Lyra, the youngest heir of Zephyra, walked gracefully through the palace corridors. Her steps were careful, her robe flowing behind her like liquid silver. She was expected to attend a diplomatic ceremony in a few hours, a ceremony to welcome human envoys who had come to strengthen ties between their worlds. Lyra, though regal and composed, felt restless. She had met humans before, through reports and formal greetings, but had never truly understood them. Their customs, their emotions, their strength. It all seemed strange and fascinating to her. Today she would meet humans up close, not through screens or reports, but in the flesh. As she approached the grand ceremonial hall, her handmaidens whispered excitedly about the human envoy who had arrived ahead of the others. Rumor had it that he was Captain Kale, a human warrior renowned for his courage and skill. He had faced dangers that most humans could not even imagine, and yet he carried himself with calm confidence rather than arrogance. Lyra could not explain why, but a strange flutter of curiosity stirred in her chest. Something about the name or perhaps the stories made her feel different. Meanwhile, on the landing platform outside the palace, Captain Kale stepped down from the sleek human transport. The Zephyran guards eyed him with curiosity, their tall, graceful forms standing stiffly in the morning sun. Kale adjusted the strap of his armored vest and scanned the surroundings. The world around him was unlike anything he had seen, floating gardens, luminescent plants, and towers that seemed to pierce the clouds. "Keep your guard up," he muttered to himself. "This is diplomatic, but anything can happen." As Kale walked toward the palace, he felt a sudden pull in his chest. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it made his heart skip. He shook it off, focusing instead on the formalities ahead. He was a warrior, trained to stay calm and collected. Emotions were a luxury he rarely indulged, and yet, something about this world, and the presence of someone he had yet to meet, made his instincts uneasy. Inside the palace, Lyra was preparing to enter the ceremonial hall. Her attendants adjusted her crown and brushed down her robe, but she hardly noticed. Her mind wandered to the stories she had read about humans. Their bravery, their unpredictability, their strange sense of loyalty and honor. She wondered if the rumors about Captain Kale were true, if he was truly the heroic figure everyone described. The doors of the ceremonial hall opened, and Lyra stepped inside. The hall was vast, with ceilings that curved high above like the sky itself. Human and Zephyran dignitaries lined the room, exchanging polite greetings. And there, at the center, stood Kale. Lyra froze for a moment, caught off guard. His presence was commanding, yet not intimidating. There was a calm strength in his stance, a quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from him. Kale, for his part, felt a jolt as his eyes met hers. There was something about her gaze, familiar yet impossible to place. For a moment, time seemed to stretch. Neither moved, neither spoke. Around them, the world continued, the murmurs of diplomats, the hum of hovering drones. But in that moment, it was just the two of them. Finally, Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady but soft. "Welcome, Captain Kale. We are honored by your presence." Kale inclined his head slightly. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. It is an honor to be here." Their conversation was polite, formal, yet beneath the words a subtle tension lingered. Both felt it, the pull of recognition, the strange familiarity that neither could explain. The ceremony proceeded, but Lyra found it difficult to focus. Her eyes kept drifting to Kale, observing the way he moved, the way he stood, the quiet strength that seemed to surround him. She could not explain the feeling that stirred within her, a sense that their meeting was not merely coincidental. After the formal greetings, a minor incident interrupted the ceremony. A group of rogue drones, malfunctioning and aggressive, swooped into the hall. Panic erupted as delegates screamed and ran for cover. Lyra froze, unsure of what to do. Kale reacted instantly. He moved with precision and speed, intercepting the drones before they could reach the princess. With a series of swift maneuvers, he disabled the machines, tossing aside sparks and fragments with ease. His actions were fluid, almost instinctive, as if he had faced far greater dangers countless times before. Lyra watched in awe. She had been trained in diplomacy and royal etiquette, not combat, yet she could not tear her eyes away. The human warrior moved with a grace and confidence that was almost hypnotic. When the last drone fell, Kale turned to her, offering a reassuring smile. "You're safe now," he said, his voice calm but firm. Lyra felt her heart skip a beat. Thank you," she stammered, her usual composure shaken. There was a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name. After the commotion settled, Lyra requested a private conversation with Kale. They walked through the palace gardens, where floating petals drifted lazily in the air, and the scent of alien flowers filled the space. The world seemed to slow, as if it were giving them a moment to connect. Kale spoke first. "You handled yourself well, Princess." Most would have panicked entirely. Lyra shook her head. I didn't know what to do. You saved me." Her voice was soft, almost shy, but there was an underlying curiosity. "Why did you act so quickly?" Kale looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Instinct, perhaps. Or maybe something more. I don't know why, but the moment I saw you in danger, I knew I had to protect you." Lyra's mind raced. There was something about his words, the sincerity behind them, that resonated deep within her. She had never felt such a strong connection with anyone, not even among her closest advisors. It was as if he had stepped out of a dream she could not remember, someone she had always known but never seen. They continued walking in silence, letting the strange beauty of Zephyra speak for itself. The floating gardens glowed softly under the afternoon sun, casting shimmering reflections across the water below. Lyra's thoughts drifted back to the strange pull she had felt when she first saw Kale. Was it possible to feel such familiarity for someone she had just met? Kale noticed her distant expression. "Princess, are you all right?" Lyra smiled faintly. I think so. It is just strange, meeting you, seeing you. It feels familiar in a way I cannot explain." Kale's brow furrowed slightly. "I feel it too. It is unusual, but I do not regret it. Whatever this feeling is, it seems important." They paused by a small pond where luminous fish swam lazily, leaving trails of light in their wake. Kale knelt and touched the water lightly, sending ripples across the surface. Lyra watched him, captivated not only by his actions but by the calmness he radiated. "You seem different from the humans I have known," she said softly. "And you are different from anyone I have ever met," Kale replied. The words hung in the air, simple yet loaded with meaning. Neither fully understood what was happening, but both sensed that their meeting was far more than a coincidence. Something ancient, powerful, and inexplicably true had been awakened between them. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, they returned to the palace. Lyra felt a mixture of anticipation and confusion. She was a princess bound by duty and expectation, yet her heart had begun to recognize something beyond the rules of her world. Kyle, too, felt a sense of destiny, the strange pull, the flashes of memory, the instinct to protect and connect. It all pointed to a future neither could yet see clearly. But one thing was certain. Their paths were now intertwined, and whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. That night, as the palace lights glimmered and the stars of Zephyra shone brightly, Lyra sat in her chamber, unable to sleep. Her mind replayed the events of the day, the ceremony, the drones, Kale's presence, and the inexplicable feeling of recognition. She wondered what it meant, why her heart felt both calm and restless at the same time. In a distant human colony, Kyle too stared at the stars, his thoughts filled with the same questions. Memories teased the edges of his mind, flashes of another life he could not fully recall, yet the certainty in his heart was undeniable. The Princess Lyra was somehow connected to him in a way that went beyond explanation. And so on that night, two souls from different worlds felt the stirrings of a bond that neither time nor distance could sever. The journey ahead was uncertain, full of challenges, discoveries, and revelations, but the first threads of connection had been woven. The unexpected encounter was only the beginning. The morning sun rose over Zephyra, painting the floating gardens and crystal spires with golden light. Princess Lyra awoke in her chamber, her thoughts already tangled with images from the day before. She could not shake the feeling of familiarity that had settled over her like a soft, invisible blanket. Captain Kale's presence lingered in her mind, the calm way he moved, the quiet strength in his eyes. and the way he had instinctively protected her from danger. She rose and walked to the large window overlooking the gardens. The floating islands drifted slowly in the sky, their colors shifting with the light. The beauty of the world was breathtaking, but Lyra felt restless. Something inside her demanded answers. She could feel it, a connection she had never experienced before, a thread stretching across space and time, linking her to the human warrior she had met only a day ago. Her handmaidens knocked gently and entered. "Princess, breakfast is ready," one said softly. Lyra nodded absently, hardly noticing them. She ate quietly, her mind wandering back to Kale. Who was he really? Why did he feel so familiar? Meanwhile, Kale stood on the palace balcony of the human envoy quarters. From here, he could see the grandeur of Scifi, the towering crystal spires, the shimmering rivers of light, and the floating gardens that drifted like stars in the sky. He ran a hand over his ring, the small ancient artifact that had always been with him but whose significance he had never fully understood. That morning, Kale had experienced something strange. As he adjusted the strap of his armor, fleeting images flashed through his mind, a wedding ceremony in a glowing alien hall, a voice calling his name, a hand clasped in his. The visions came and went too quickly to grasp, but the feeling lingered, a warmth, a certainty, a sense that someone important to him was near. He could not shake it. "Why now?" he whispered to himself. "Why do these memories return now?" Lyra, feeling the same unease, decided to take a walk in the palace gardens. She moved carefully among the floating flowers and glowing plants, each step echoing softly on the crystal pathway. She hoped the fresh air would clear her mind, but instead, it seemed to bring the memories closer, sharper, more insistent. A soft, almost forgotten melody drifted from the distant palace halls. Lyra paused. She knew that tune. It was part of an ancient Scifian ritual she had never fully studied. And yet in her heart it resonated deeply, almost as if it belonged to her. The memory of it brought a vision, a human hand holding hers, voices speaking promises she could not fully remember, and a sense of joy so pure that it made her chest ache. Lyra blinked, shaken. "Impossible," she whispered. I've never known this before." Back in the human quarters, Kale paced the floor. His mind replayed the events of the previous day, the ceremony, the attack of the drones, and his first real meeting with Princess Lyra. Every detail felt intensely vivid, as though he had lived it before. His instincts told him that he must speak to her, to understand why his heart recognized her in ways he could not explain. Later that morning, the palace summoned Kale and Lyra for a strategic discussion. Several Scifian advisors, along with human diplomats, gathered to review plans for strengthening the alliance. Lyra and Kale found themselves seated next to each other at the long, glowing table. As they reviewed holographic projections of the planet's defenses, Kale noticed Lyra's eyes drifting toward him. He offered a reassuring smile. "Princess, are you all right?" he asked softly. Lyra nodded, but her heart was racing. "Yes, I just feel as if I have known you longer than a day," she admitted quietly, almost afraid to say it aloud. Kale's breath caught. He understood perfectly. "I feel the same," he replied. "It is strange, but I cannot ignore it." The discussion turned to the planet's energy grid, and a troubling pattern of minor sabotage attempts was revealed. Several human technicians had noticed anomalies in the floating garden's power conduits, and both human and Scifian leaders were concerned. Lyra and Kale were tasked with investigating together. As they moved through the palace corridors, Lyra could not help noticing the precision in Kale's movements. Every step was deliberate, every gesture confident yet calm. She felt herself drawn to him in ways she could not explain. Kyle, walking beside her, sensed her gaze. "Princess, may I ask you something personal?" he said cautiously. Lyra inclined her head. "Of course. Do you ever feel memories that do not belong entirely to you? Visions of another life or a time you do not remember?" Lyra's eyes widened. "Yes, I have been experiencing them. Since yesterday, I cannot stop seeing flashes, images of someone like you, but not exactly you. And voices, promises, feelings I cannot name." Kale's heart raced. "Then it is not just me. I see them too. Flashes of a life with you in another time, another place. I do not understand it fully, but I know it is real." The moment was interrupted as the palace alarms blared again. Another minor sabotage had been detected in the energy conduits near the gardens. Lyra and Kale rushed to the site, their instincts working in perfect sync. The floating conduits hummed dangerously, sparks flying as the sabotage device destabilized the energy flow. Kale quickly assessed the situation, his warrior instincts kicking in. Lyra, though untrained in combat, worked alongside him, following his guidance and using her knowledge of Zifferan systems to stabilize the conduits. Together, they managed to prevent a major disaster. The human technicians praised Kale's expertise, while the Zifferan engineers marveled at Lyra's quick thinking. But both Lyra and Kale knew that their connection had guided them more than any skill or training. After the crisis, they returned to the gardens. Lyra leaned against a glowing tree, her mind swirling with questions. Kyle, why do I feel as if we have always known each other? As if we were meant to work together to protect each other. Kale took a deep breath. I do not have all the answers, Princess, but I feel the same. I have trained my whole life as a warrior, but nothing has prepared me for this feeling, this connection. Something brought us together, and I do not think it is coincidence. Lyra looked at him, searching his eyes. There was truth there, and something more. Something ancient, something timeless. As the day passed, their visions became stronger. Lyra saw fleeting images of a wedding ceremony, a glowing hall filled with light, and a voice calling her name with love and reverence. Kale saw the same hall from his perspective, the same glowing rings, the same voices, and realized that their memories were overlapping, converging into clarity. What does it mean? Lyra asked, her voice trembling. Are these dreams or memories? Kyle shook his head. I do not know. But I think we were meant to find each other in this life. Somehow, across time, across worlds, our paths were aligned. Lyra felt a shiver run through her. It feels real, more real than anything I have ever known. They walked silently for a while, each lost in thought. The floating gardens swayed gently in the breeze, and the glow of the setting sun bathed them in golden light. In that moment, it was not just their duty or the political alliance that mattered. It was the undeniable bond forming between them. That evening, Lyra retired to her chamber, but sleep did not come easily. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the visions and memories. Each flash of memory was like a piece of a puzzle, slowly revealing a story that had been hidden from her. Meanwhile, Kale stood on the balcony of his quarters, gazing at the stars. He traced the constellations with his fingers, feeling the same pull he had felt since first seeing Lyra. His memories, fragmented though they were, whispered a truth he could not ignore. There was a connection between them that went beyond reason, beyond explanation. In the quiet of the night, both Lyra and Kale knew that their encounter had changed everything. What had begun as a formal meeting between a princess and a human envoy had awakened memories, feelings, and a bond that neither could deny. The mysteries of their past were waiting to be uncovered, and the journey ahead promised revelations that would challenge everything they thought they knew. As the twin moons of Zyphera rose into the sky, casting silver light across the floating gardens, Lyra whispered into the night, "Who are you?" "Really, Kale?" And Kale, in the silence of his quarters, thought the same. "Who are you, Lyra, and why do I feel as if you have always been mine?" The answers were not yet clear, but one thing was certain. Their destinies were entwined, and together, they would uncover the secrets of a bond older than memory itself. The memories awakened, and with them the story of a human warrior and an alien princess was just beginning. The morning on Zyphera was crisp, with soft golden light spilling across the floating gardens. Princess Lyra walked through the palace halls with a sense of unease mixed with curiosity. Her mind was still full of visions, flashes of a life she could not fully remember, memories that felt impossibly real. She could not stop thinking about Captain Kale. The connection she felt with him went beyond mere fascination or admiration. It felt like a truth that had been buried deep within her soul. Lyra reached the library, a vast room of polished crystal shelves filled with glowing tomes. The palace historians had long preserved Zifferan records, some dating back centuries. Lyra hoped that among the ancient scrolls and holographic records, she might find answers to the strange visions that haunted her. She activated a search interface, her fingers moving gracefully over the glowing holographic keys. Records of ancient human Zifferan alliances, she whispered, typing carefully. The display filled with archives detailing centuries-old treaties, trade agreements, and stories of legendary heroes. But one set of records caught her eye, a collection of hidden scrolls detailing secret unions between humans and Zifferans. Lyra's heart raced as she scanned the text. According to the scrolls, there had been rituals long ago, conducted in secret to unite humans and Zifferans not only in diplomacy, but in spirit. The records spoke of a sacred union, one that bound souls across worlds, ensuring that certain humans and Zifferans would always find each other in every lifetime. Her fingers trembled as she reached a section marked with a familiar emblem. The emblem looked exactly like the small ring that Kale had been wearing. Her breath caught. Could it be possible? Could this human warrior really be connected to her in a way that transcended time itself? Meanwhile, Kyle stood in his quarters holding the same ring, now understanding its significance more clearly. His memories had grown stronger in the past days. Flashes of a glowing hall, a human and Zifferan couple kneeling before an ancient altar, voices echoing vows of unity and love. He had tried to ignore these visions, but now they felt undeniable. He knew he had to speak to Lyra. Their connection was not just coincidence, it was fate. He made his way to the palace gardens where the floating plants glimmered softly in the morning sun. Lyra was already there, pacing along the crystal pathways, her face tense with questions. "Princess Lyra," Kale called softly. She turned, and the moment their eyes met, the world seemed to pause again. The recognition, the familiarity, the pull between them, it was overwhelming. Kale," Lyra began, her voice trembling slightly. "I have found records. Ancient Zifferan scrolls. They speak of secret unions between humans and Zifferans, rituals to unite our souls. And this," she held up the holographic display. "This emblem looks exactly like your ring. It feels like it is connected to us." Kale's hand went to his chest over the ring. "I know, I have been seeing flashes. Memories of a life I do not fully remember. Ceremony, a promise, a vow. I think we were meant to be together across time, across worlds." Lyra felt a shiver run through her. "But how? Why now? Why did this come back to us only today?" Kale shook his head. "I do not know. Perhaps it was always waiting for the right moment, when both of us were ready to recognize it. Fate has a way of guiding us even when we cannot see the path." They walked together through the gardens, sharing their experiences and visions. The more they talked, the more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Lyra recounted the flashes she had seen, images of holding hands with a human man, glowing lights, the warmth of shared vows. Kale described his visions from the other perspective, the hall, the altar, the promise of unity and love. "It was us," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. "It was always us." Kale nodded, his eyes softening. "I never understood why I felt so connected to you from the moment I first saw you. But now it all makes sense. We were joined long before we met in this lifetime." Their conversation was interrupted by a messenger from the palace council. Reports had come in that rogue factions, opposed to human Zifferan unity, were planning to exploit the revelation of their bond for political gain. The council feared unrest if the public learned too soon. Lyra and Kale exchanged a determined glance. They would have to uncover the truth and protect it, not just for themselves, but for the future of both worlds. Later, Lyra and Kale met with the palace historians to examine the records more closely. Ancient holograms displayed ceremonial halls bathed in light, artifacts glowing with mystical energy, and figures of humans and Zifferans kneeling before the altar of unity. Lyra traced her fingers over the holographic image of the ring, identical to Kale's, and felt the warmth of recognition spread through her. "These records, they are undeniable," she said. "They confirm what we have both been seeing in our visions. We were united once before in a ritual that bound our souls. Kale, it seems we were married long ago, in a time and place that neither of us fully remembers." Kale took her hand, and she felt a shiver run through her body. "And now," he said softly, "we have found each other again. We have been given another chance to fulfill the promise of that bond." Lyra's eyes glistened with tears. "It is incredible and overwhelming. I never imagined that something like this could be true, that we could be connected across lifetimes." Kyle smiled gently. "We must be strong, Princess. Not everyone will understand or accept this. But together we can face whatever challenges come our way. Our bond is real and it cannot be broken. Their moment of quiet understanding was soon interrupted by another flash of memory. Lyra saw herself kneeling before the altar, Cale's hand in hers, a voice echoing promises of protection, loyalty, and love. The vision was vivid, almost tangible, and it left her breathless. Cale felt the same surge of emotion. The memories were not just visions, they were proof. Proof that their souls had been intertwined for centuries. Proof that their meeting was destiny. Proof that their bond was more than fate, it was reality. As the day continued, Lyra and Cale shared their story cautiously with the palace council. The historians confirmed the authenticity of the ancient records, though they warned that the revelation could create political tension. Some council members were skeptical, worried about the reaction of both human and Zephyran leaders. Others were intrigued, seeing the potential for a powerful alliance strengthened by the bond between the princess and the human warrior. Despite the challenges ahead, Lyra and Kyle felt a sense of clarity they had never known. The confusion, the doubts, and the strange feelings of familiarity were now replaced with understanding. They knew who they were, and they knew their connection was real. That evening, Lyra and Cale walked through the palace gardens once more, the twin moons of Zephyra casting silver light across the floating flowers. Lyra leaned against Kyle, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. "Kyle," she said softly, "this changes everything. But it also makes everything clearer. I understand now. Why I felt drawn to you, why my heart recognized you before I even knew your name." Kyle smiled and took her hand. "And I understand why I felt compelled to protect you, why I could not ignore the pull in my heart. We were always meant to find each other, Lyra. Across lifetimes, across worlds, we were always connected." Lyra rested her head against his shoulder. "Then we will face the future together. Whatever comes, we will not let anything break our bond." Cale's gaze turned to the horizon, where the sun dipped below the floating gardens, casting long shadows across the palace. "There will be challenges," he said thoughtfully. "Some may not understand our connection, some may try to exploit it. But together, we are stronger than anything they could throw at us." Lyra nodded, her resolve firm. "We will show them that unity is not just a policy or a treaty. It is real, and it is stronger than fear or doubt." As the night deepened, their bond grew even stronger. The memories that had awakened were no longer fleeting. They were a living part of their present, guiding their thoughts, their actions, and their hearts. They knew that their journey was only beginning, but they also knew that they would face it together, united not just by duty but by destiny. In the quiet of the palace, as the stars shimmered above and the floating gardens glowed softly, Lyra whispered into the night, "Kyle, we were always meant to find each other. And now we have." Kyle squeezed her hand gently. "Yes, Lyra, and now we will see our destiny through together." The revelation had changed everything. The visions, the memories, and the ancient rituals had confirmed what their hearts had already known. Princess Lyra and Captain Cale were bound across time, their connection unbreakable, their love inevitable. And as the palace slept, the two of them stood together, ready to face the challenges ahead, knowing that the truth of their bond would guide them through every trial and triumph. The revelation had been made, and with it, the story of the human warrior and the alien princess grew ever more extraordinary. The morning light of Zephyra glimmered across the palace as Princess Lyra stood on her balcony, overlooking the floating gardens. The events of the past days weighed heavily on her mind. She had discovered the ancient records, seen the visions, and realized that Captain Cale, the human warrior, was more than he appeared. He was connected to her across lifetimes, bound to her soul. Yet, despite the clarity of their bond, the palace was not at peace. Rumors of their connection had begun to spread among some of the advisors and diplomats. Not everyone welcomed the idea of a human and a Zephyran being united in this way. Some saw it as a political threat, while others feared that such revelations could spark unrest among the citizens. Lyra took a deep breath. She knew that proving the authenticity of her bond with Cale would not be simple. It would require demonstrating trust, loyalty, and courage, not just to the court but to the people of Zephyra and the human colonies. Cale joined her on the balcony, his calm presence offering reassurance. "Princess," he said softly, "we cannot ignore the doubts. But we can show them through our actions that our bond is real, that it is strong, and that it is a force for good. Lyra nodded, determination in her eyes. Then we must face the trials. Whatever they are, I will stand with you. The first trial was a test of strategy and courage. The Palace Council had designed a scenario in which Kale and Lyra would navigate a dangerous simulation of the planet's terrain, a mix of floating islands, shifting bridges, and holographic hazards. The trial was meant to test not only their intelligence but their ability to trust each other under pressure. As they stepped onto the simulation platform, Lyra felt her heart race. She had trained in diplomacy and court etiquette, but she was not a warrior like Kale. Yet, as soon as the trial began, she found herself moving instinctively, following Kale's guidance and making decisions based on his subtle signals. Kale noticed her confidence growing. "Good," he whispered as they leaped across a moving platform. "Trust yourself as much as you trust me." The trial was grueling. They faced treacherous gaps, shifting terrain, and sudden obstacles. But with each challenge, their coordination grew stronger. Lyra began to recognize patterns in Kale's movements, understanding his instincts almost before he acted. Kale, in turn, observed her intuition and adaptability, marveling at her courage and quick thinking. When they reached the final platform, the council observed silently. Lyra extended her hand to Kale, and together they activated the control panel that completed the simulation. The platform stabilized, the lights of the simulation hall brightened, and the trial was declared a success. The council was impressed, though some remained cautious. "They work well together," one advisor murmured. "But will this bond survive the scrutiny of the public?" The second trial was a test of diplomacy and communication. Lyra and Kale were tasked with resolving a disagreement between two human and Zifferan trade delegations. The delegates had conflicting interests and tensions ran high. The council wanted to see if the pair could use their bond to mediate and foster understanding. Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "We must listen to each other before we speak. Unity comes from understanding, not force." Kale added his perspective, explaining human concerns with clarity and respect. Together they guided the delegates toward compromise, finding solutions that respected both sides. Their coordination was seamless, each word building on the other's reasoning. By the end of the trial, the delegates were satisfied, and the council noted their skill. Lyra felt a growing sense of pride. For the first time, she realized that their bond was not just personal. It was a symbol of unity and strength that could inspire both worlds. The third trial was a test of loyalty and courage in the face of danger. Rogue factions, opposed to human Zifferan unity, had staged a minor assault on the outskirts of the palace. Lyra and Kale were called to lead a team to protect key areas and civilians. As they approached the floating gardens under attack, Lyra felt fear, but it was tempered by determination. She and Kale moved together, coordinating the defense with precision. Kale fought with his usual skill, neutralizing threats, while Lyra used her knowledge of the gardens and the palace's defenses to guide the teams and protect civilians. During the battle, a sudden surge of energy from the attackers caused part of a bridge to collapse. A young Zifferan child was stranded on the edge, frightened and unable to move. Without hesitation, Kale extended his hand to Lyra, and together they leapt, catching the child and bringing them safely back to solid ground. The council and spectators watched in awe. The human warrior and the alien princess had not only proven their skill and courage, but also their unwavering loyalty to each other and to those they protected. After the trial, Lyra and Kale walked through the palace corridors, exhaustion mixed with exhilaration. "We did well," Kale said, his voice soft. "But the hardest trials are not physical. They are the ones that test hearts and trust." Lyra nodded. "I know, and we will face them together. Nothing can break what we have discovered, not doubts, not politics, not fear." The final trial, the council explained, was a test of integrity and truth. Lyra and Kale were required to address both the palace and visiting dignitaries, publicly affirming the reality of their bond. It was a delicate task. One misstep could undermine their credibility or cause political backlash. The ceremonial hall was filled with humans, Zifferans, and observers from distant colonies. Lyra and Kale stepped onto the podium, their hands clasped, their hearts steady despite the weight of expectation. Lyra began, her voice clear and strong. Honored guest, we stand before you not as symbols but as individuals whose lives are bound together across time and space. The bond between us is real, and it is a testament to the unity that is possible between our peoples. Kale continued, adding, "Our connection is not a story or legend. It is a truth we have discovered, a reality that guides us. We ask for your trust, your understanding, and your support as we face the challenges ahead, together." The hall was silent for a moment, the words sinking in. Then applause began, spreading slowly as some delegates acknowledged the courage it took to speak openly. Others remained skeptical, but the message was clear. Lyra and Kale had proven their bond through action, courage, and truth. Later, in the privacy of the gardens, Lyra and Kale reflected on the trials. "We have shown them what we are capable of," Lyra said. "But the road ahead is still uncertain. There will be challenges we cannot yet see." Kale took her hand, squeezing it gently. "No matter what comes, Princess, we will face it together. Our bond is our strength, and it cannot be broken by doubt or fear." Lyra smiled, a mixture of relief and pride lighting her face. "You are right, Kyle. Together we can face anything. And we will show everyone that unity is more than a word. It is a living, breathing truth." As night fell over Zephyra, the floating gardens glowed softly, reflecting the bond between the human warrior and the alien princess. The trials of trust had strengthened not only their connection, but their confidence in each other. Lyra and Kale stood atop a balcony, looking at the horizon where the twin moons cast silver light across the gardens. Lyra rested her head on Kale's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart, and the calm assurance that he was there for her, always. "Kale," she whispered, "we have faced the trials, but I know there will be more challenges. We cannot predict the future, but we can face it together." Kyle nodded. "Yes, Lyra. Whatever comes, our bond will guide us. It is stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, and stronger than anything the world can throw at us." And so, under the twin moons of Zephyra, the princess and the warrior stood united. The trials of trust had proven their courage, loyalty, and integrity. They were ready to face whatever awaited them, enemies, doubts, and unforeseen dangers, but they would face them together, as one. The story of Princess Lyra and Captain Kale was no longer just about discovery. It was about strength, unity, and the power of a bond that could transcend worlds and lifetimes. As the night deepened, the palace slept, but the two of them remained vigilant, planning, preparing, and trusting in the truth that had been revealed. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time they felt unstoppable, ready to meet the challenges of both human and Zephyran worlds. The trials of trust had been completed, but the path ahead promised even greater tests of courage, wisdom, and the enduring power of their love and destiny. The sun rose over Zephyra, painting the crystal towers and floating gardens with a soft golden light. Princess Lyra stood on her balcony, her hands clasped in front of her, watching the morning mist drift across the gardens. She felt a mixture of anticipation and determination. The trials of trust had proven their bond, but new challenges loomed on the horizon. Captain Kale joined her silently, his presence a comforting anchor. "Princess," he said, "I have received reports of a rogue faction moving toward the palace. They must not learn of our bond before we are ready. They could use it to create chaos." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we must act quickly. We cannot let them disrupt the peace we have worked so hard to build." Kyle nodded. "We will face them together. I will not let anything happen to you. Lyra, you are not just the princess. Your bond with me is stronger than any force they can wield." The Palace Council had already mobilized defenders, both human and Zephyran, yet the threat was unlike anything they had faced before. The rogue faction had advanced technology and knowledge of the palace's defenses, and they moved with cunning precision. Lyra and Kyle walked through the halls of the palace, coordinating the defense plans. Their bond, strengthened through trials of trust, allowed them to anticipate each other's actions and decisions almost instinctively. Lyra directed the defenders, providing guidance on how to use the terrain and the palace's security systems, while Kale organized human warriors and engineers, ensuring that everyone worked in unison. The first wave of attackers arrived at the palace gates. Hovering vehicles, armed drones, and agile infiltrators surged forward, intent on reaching the royal chambers. Kale and Lyra moved side by side, their presence a beacon of courage to the defenders. Kale drew his energy blade, its hum cutting through the air as he engaged the attackers with precision. Lyra, though not trained in combat to the same degree, wielded a defensive energy shield, her movements guided by Kale's instructions and her own instincts. Together they formed a seamless team, moving with synchronicity that astonished both allies and enemies. As the battle intensified, a group of attackers breached the inner courtyard. Lyra's heart pounded, but she remembered the visions and memories that had guided her in the past days. She focused, using her knowledge of the palace gardens to create obstacles, reroute attackers, and protect civilians. Kyle fought beside her, his skill unmatched but always keeping an eye on her, ready to act the moment danger drew near. A sudden explosion rocked one of the palace towers, sending debris raining down. A young Zifferan guard was trapped beneath a fallen beam. Without hesitation, Kale and Lyra leapt into action. Kale lifted the beam effortlessly, while Lyra guided the guard to safety. The small act of heroism inspired the defenders, strengthening their resolve to protect the palace at all costs. As they regrouped in the central courtyard, the leader of the rogue faction emerged. A towering figure clad in dark armor, with a weapon crackling with unstable energy, he commanded the attackers with precision. His presence was intimidating, and even the bravest defenders hesitated. Kale stepped forward, his blade glowing brightly. "We will not let you harm this palace or its people," he declared, his voice steady and unwavering. "Your threat ends here." Lyra joined him, her shield radiating energy. "You underestimate the strength of unity," she said. "Humans and Zifferans together are stronger than any weapon you possess. You cannot break what is built on trust, courage, and love." The rogue leader laughed, a chilling sound that echoed across the courtyard. "Love and unity? Foolish ideals. Power is all that matters. And today I will show you that even the strongest bonds can be shattered." With that, he advanced, unleashing a wave of energy toward Kale and Lyra. Kale deflected the attack with his blade, while Lyra redirected it with her shield. The energy collided, sending sparks flying and shaking the ground beneath them. The battle escalated into a spectacular display of skill, strategy, and courage. Kale moved with unparalleled precision, taking down enemies with calculated strikes, while Lyra used her knowledge of the palace's defenses to create barriers and safe zones for the civilians. Together they were unstoppable. During a critical moment, the rogue leader attempted to separate them, aiming a powerful blast at Lyra. Kyle reacted instantly, leaping into the path of the attack and using his blade to redirect the energy harmlessly into the sky. Lyra's eyes widened with awe and relief.
"Kyle, you saved me!"
Kale's expression was calm, but there was a spark of warmth in his eyes. "Always," he said simply. The defenders, inspired by their courage, rallied with renewed vigor. Human and Zifferan warriors fought side by side, their coordination flawless. The attackers, once confident, began to falter under the combined strength of unity and strategy. Seeing their advantage, Kale and Lyra pressed forward, leading the charge against the rogue leader. The battle was fierce, with energy blasts and weapon strikes lighting up the courtyard. Lyra's shield absorbed the brunt of attacks while Kale engaged the leader directly, parrying blows and striking with calculated precision. Finally, Kale saw an opening. With a swift, decisive movement, he disarmed the rogue leader, sending the weapon skidding across the courtyard. Lyra moved in tandem, using her shield to create a containment field around the defeated enemy, ensuring he could no longer cause harm. The remaining attackers, seeing their leader defeated, fled in disarray. The courtyard fell silent, save for the hum of energy shields and the distant cries of relief from the civilians. Humans and Zifferans alike turned to Kale and Lyra, their eyes filled with admiration and gratitude. Kale turned to Lyra, his expression softening. "We did it together." Lyra smiled, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph on her face. "Yes, and together. And nothing could have stopped us because we trusted each other." The palace council approached, their faces a mixture of respect and amazement. "Princess Captain," one advisor said, "you have not only defended the palace but proven the strength of your bond. Humans and Zephyrians have witnessed courage, unity, and loyalty that will be remembered for generations." Lyra and Kale exchanged a glance, their hearts swelling with pride. The trials of trust had led to this ultimate test, and they had emerged victorious, not just as leaders or warriors, but as symbols of unity and hope. That evening, the palace celebrated. Humans and Zifferans mingled freely, sharing stories of the battle and praising the courage of their leaders. Lyra and Kale stood together on the balcony, looking out over the gardens that had been the site of their greatest challenge. "You were incredible today, Kale," Lyra said softly. "I have never seen such courage and skill." Kyle shook his head, smiling. "It was not just me. You guided us all with wisdom and bravery. Without you, we would not have succeeded." Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. "Then we truly are stronger together." Kale wrapped an arm around her, feeling the steady warmth of her presence. "Always, Lyra. Whatever comes next, we will face it as one." As the twin moons of Zephyra rose into the sky, casting silver light over the floating gardens, Lyra and Kale stood united. Their bond, tested through trials, strengthened through revelation, and proven through courage, was now a living testament to the power of trust, unity, and love. The events of the day had not only protected the palace but had shown the people of Zephyra and the human colonies that cooperation, loyalty, and understanding could overcome even the greatest challenges. Lyra and Kale's union was no longer a secret or a matter of doubt. It was a symbol of hope for a future where two worlds could coexist in harmony. Later that night, as the celebrations continued, Lyra and Kale found a quiet moment alone in the palace gardens. The floating petals shimmered under the moonlight, and the gentle hum of the gardens created a peaceful backdrop. "Kyle," Lyra whispered, "we have faced the greatest danger so far, but I feel that our journey is only beginning. There will be more challenges, more threats, but I am not afraid. I have you by my side." Kyle smiled, taking her hand. "And I have you, Lyra. We have already faced trials that tested everything we knew. We have seen visions of the past, faced enemies, and proven our strength. Nothing can break the bond between us." Lyra leaned against him, feeling the steady warmth of his presence. "Then we will face everything together as one. Humans and Zephyrians united not only in alliance but in heart." Kale nodded, gazing at the horizon where the twin moons reflected off the floating gardens. "Together, Lyra, we will build a future that honors both our worlds. Our bond is the beginning of something greater, something that will inspire generations to come." As they stood in silence, the palace sleeping peacefully around them, both knew that their love and unity had changed the course of history. The trials had tested them, the dangers had strengthened them, and the revelation of their bond had guided them. Now, as the stars shone brightly over Zephyra, they were ready for whatever the future held. Princess Lyra and Captain Kale had proven that love, courage, and unity could overcome any challenge. Their story, tested through danger and revelation, had become a beacon of hope. Humans and Zephyrians alike would remember the day when a warrior and a princess stood together against all odds and triumphed. And as they looked out over the gardens, hand in hand, they knew that this was only the beginning. Their journey, their love, and their legacy would continue, stronger, brighter, and more enduring.